You're listening to the Veterinary Innovation Podcast.
You're listening to the Veterinary Innovation Podcast. My name is Shawn Wilkie, and along with my awesome co-host, we interview the innovators in this space every week. Ivan, go ahead and get us started.
Hey, I'm Ivan Zach, and I'm excited to introduce a colleague of mine who lives in the beautiful city of San Diego, where I dream to move one day, Dr. Robert Parkins. He is a dedicated veterinarian and entrepreneur, currently serving as the CEO and the co-founder of myBalto, a pet health app that aims to save pet owners money. In addition to this, he is also the CEO and co-founder of myBalto Foundation, a pending 501(c) nonprofit organization that committed to reducing the number of economic euthanasias and their impact on veterinary professionals, just like our foundation at Galaxy. Dr. Parkins has been practicing as a DVM for 7 years and currently works as an emergency veterinarian at a veterinary specialty hospital of Sorrento Valley in San Diego, California. He attended Kalamazoo College and Michigan State University for veterinary school and originally hails from Michigan. Robert, welcome to the show. Thank you for finding the time.
Thank you guys so much for having me. Really excited to get the chance to talk to you guys today.
So, Robert, a pet health app that aims to save pet owners money. It seems like it's all of them are trying to do that. So what is your version of it, and how did you stumble upon this idea?
Well, originally it started off as my work as an emergency veterinarian. A lot of owners would come in the middle of the night and they wouldn't have access to their pet's medical records. And it often limited the care that I can provide them as a veterinarian, but also would cost them more money. We'd have to repeat blood work they did earlier that week. And oftentimes it would make things a lot more challenging for them to especially hospitalize their pet afterwards if they needed those treatments. And at the end of the day, I was like, we got to find a better way to do this because none of these systems are communicating in terms of sharing records. And so that's kind of where it all started. But it kind of broached the bigger issue that kept coming up through ER at some point, and that was the cost of things. It was whether or not you didn't have insurance, or it was inflation, or you had poor credit. I can name 100 reasons why pet care is expensive, but at the end of the day, it was always a financial barrier for owners to do what was best for their pets. And owners had to keep thinking about what's the contents of their wallet and not what's really in their pet's best interest. So that's kind of where a lot of this started from. And I think something that we're doing that's a little more unique than most places is that we're taking more of a systemic approach to it. This is not just a veterinary problem or just a pet owner problem. This is a community industry problem. So what we're trying to do is address both sides of that equation by, one, we have kind of a consumer facing app that kind of helps you save money on things you'd be doing anyway, and then using those kind of credits towards vet bills in the future. And then the other side of that is the myBalto Foundation, which we started, is more to help veterinarians in providing essentially an individual angel fund for hospitals across the country. So that way they can help pets in need when they need it. And that's kind of the two big goals that we're trying to do. So that way we can help prevent veterinary bills before they happen with the myBalto Foundation, and then vet bills after they happen with the more the consumer facing side of myBalto.
Well, let me unpack that a little bit because I understand the mission and the vision, but how do you get there? So you have a two-sided app. There is a consumer version, so there's an app in their hand, as I understand, and then there's a clinic side of things. And somehow the medical records need to end up in the app, and so the consumer can see it, and then somehow they accumulate these points that somehow then they give them the discount later on in the clinic that they go to, and they can get discount for their services. So can you just walk that customer journey for me?
Yeah, so we do. They're pretty separate, and although they are the same or similar entity, but pretty much just the consumer side of things, a day-to-day process. You're going to go buy your dog food. You buy it through myBalto by clicking on Chewy or Walmart, whoever you want to buy your product from. You just buy it through myBalto. When you do so, you get cash back for doing so. So that's the first incentive, that you get cash back on just purchases you make anyway for your pet. Following that, you kind of get, if you're familiar with the airline style of reward points, where you get a certain number of trips or a certain number of miles and you reach a certain tier status. As you reach certain tiers, by making a number of purchases, you get more treats each week. And these treats then, when you submit a vet bill through our platform, when you said if all three of us were submitting a vet bill, for example, whoever has more treats will get more money towards their vet bill at the end of the day. So pretty much you can submit your vet bill through our platform, and that will help pay some of it as much as we can. We have like a monthly and weekly allocation for people to submit them for.
And so ultimately, by purchasing things that you're going to buy anyways, you're earning credits or cash that you can use to pay your vet bills. And whatever you don't have in cash credits using your app,
you can then pay for yourself.
Exactly. And it's just to help alleviate the cost because a lot of people struggle with even vet bills of like $500. About 25% of the population struggles with vet bills of that cost. And that goes up to like almost 50% for vet bills up to $1,000. So sometimes just taking a couple $100 off a vet bill can make a huge difference for people. And the reason we're able to do this is because companies like Chewy and all those other major pet corporations pay us essentially an advertising fee for putting them on our platform. And we just take that money that we get back. We give some back to the owner and we put some back in our vet bill fund essentially to help owners in need when they submit their vet bills.
So those funds that you accumulate as the treats, that's essentially because you get paid as a third party from these vendors, then you accumulate a certain amount of cash and then you transition into points. And then because people use that, then you can convert it internally into a cash for towards their vet bill. But then there's also certain cash that they accumulate towards future purchases. There's actually money accumulated on the app itself for them.
Exactly. So pretty much as soon as you make that purchase from Chewy, I give you $5 right away back for your food. So that's the first thing. It's like instant gratification. You have some money back already. And that's yours to do whatever you want with. Then later on, when you decide to submit a vet bill, the total number of treats that you've accumulated can then be used to get more money back on your vet bill. So they're two separate entities. The cash back is just kind of an initial, very acute incentive. And then the vet bills later on, when you do need it, you can save up your treats for when you need to essentially submit a vet bill to get more cash back and save money there.
Okay, now I'm getting it. And then the clinics that you work with, is it a particular hospital or they just show the vet bill? Let's say I'm finishing the treatment in any hospital in the United States or I don't know, anywhere in the world, maybe, I don't know. And then you basically, I'm saying, okay, I just got $3,000 bill, but I have gazillion of treats. That's my points. And then you would say, with that, I could have $300 off. And then I'll say, yeah, I'll use those today. And then you will just basically send money to the clinic. Is that how it is?
No, pretty much you get the bill, you pay the bill up front. And then afterwards, you take a picture of it, you submit it through our app, and then we reimburse you for as much as we can.
So cash.
Cash on your, we call it our petty cash, but yes, it would go onto your petty cash fund on myBalto. So that way you have some funds to then reimburse yourself.
Okay, well, how did you come up with the idea? That's neat. That's interesting how you understood that you can actually do a margin on the third party referral. And then how is it going, like in terms of distribution? How are you getting out there, and do you have a good traction?
So we literally just launched this week, so it's been a big week for us. We kind of released the myBalto Foundation and the myBalto consumer side of things just within the last month. So we're just starting to get out there. They've both been doing well so far. Whereas the first week is always trying to work out some of the bugs, make sure, things that you miss with all your consumer testing and try to make it as easy for people to understand as possible. Because the nice thing is it doesn't rely on things like your credit history or your financial status. And that's what we're trying to remove from the situation, because that's the biggest barrier for a lot of people. The foundation is unique, though, because one, it's helping out a lot of veterinary clinics at a very fundamental level. Too many of us are having to do economic euthanasias for things that we can fix. And what we do is we get these angel accounts for them. And right now we're actually working with veterinary management systems to have us be embedded in their platform. So veterinary clinics can then just toggle on, they want the myBalto Foundation. And we actually raise the funds for them. So what happens is you do a roundup charge at checkout for all your clients coming through the door. And all those funds raised go directly to your hospital to help out patients in need. And you can use those funds for whatever case you would like. We just encourage you not to use it for things like cosmetic purposes, because taking out a mask or doing ear croppings probably aren't the most effective use of those funds. But pretty much it allows every hospital to have their own angel fund to use at their wishes, essentially. And that way they're really helping out at a local level, which I think is something that's unique to what we're doing.
Yeah, that's fascinating. So where did the idea come from? The thing that I want to double click on a little bit more is, what does that credit look like if I'm buying, if I've got a St. Bernard and I'm buying dog food once a month, how much am I going to be earning towards my future vet bills?
It's the biggest thing is the number of purchases you make. But for if you're just buying your dog food for the year, you're making about 25 to $30 back on your dog food. Now, if you have a bigger dog, potentially more. And if you're doing like a prescription diet or things like the Just Food for Dogs or some of those other ones, you're going to make even more, closer to 50 to 60 to $70 a year just by buying your dog food, because they're just more expensive by nature. Now, the idea, in terms of where we got the idea from, fortunately, as you know, most veterinarians aren't the best business owners. They tend to give away everything for free. Fortunately, my co-founder and my brother is more on the finance side of things. So he was doing something similar with a previous company he did. And that's how we kind of developed the third-party affiliate revenue style of things, help pay for things, kind of take that burden off of the owner initially.
I know that you just launched and you're working out the bugs in the first week, and I've launched a couple products, and I don't want to disappoint you, but you will see more bugs on the second week as well.
My brother's a tech guy too, and he's been loving this part of the journey for him. It's an interesting process, and the nice thing is you get to speak to consumers on a personal level. We get to call them and say, "Hey, how can we make this better for you?" And that's really the exciting part. Like saying that one-on-one connection with them and saying, "Hey, we're just trying to help you." And the nice thing is, not only when you make purchases on our app, you're also helping out other pets in needs by doing it, because that revenue that we're getting, yes, some goes to you right away as cash back, but it goes into this fund that's going to help those other pets in need when they need it. And that will be you one day too when you do submit that vet bill. So it's kind of just a community-based platform to really help each other out and really try and make a difference for things that we can fix. Because at the end of the day, sometimes even just preventative care, getting vaccines for things that you should have gotten vaccines for, can make a huge difference in long-term diseases. I think we've all had cases where I had a parvo puppy that was 6 months old. And the only reason they came in to see me at that point in time is because they couldn't get a vaccine when they were younger because it was too expensive. But now they have a $5,000 bill instead of a $50 vaccine.
Well, hopefully they got rich by that time and they can pay the 5,000. So,
well, unfortunately, I put the dog down 2 days later, and that's the sad part, right? It's like those things are preventable, and if they just have access to those little funds in the beginning, that might give them a little bit of an extra edge. That's where we can make a difference in long term.
Yeah. Well, what's the next big milestone? So you just launched the app. You're getting feedback from the owners. By the way, it's nice to talk to the owners, but very quickly becomes not scalable because you're not going to be able to talk to every single one. But it's great to collect that initial feedback and incorporate it into your backlog. So what's the next phase? What's the next big milestone that you're like, okay, this is where we need to get?
Right now, it's helping to expand the myBalto Foundation platform as well. We're going to our first conference here in May at the Vet Show in Chicago, and getting hospitals on board. It's kind of like our coming out party, essentially, to make more hospitals aware of what we're doing, so that give them access, because it's free to use. That's the biggest thing. We're trying to remove the barriers for veterinarians to use this as well. And by doing so, not only do we help more patients, but we also get access to their medical record system, so we can then share it with consumers when they need them. So that's kind of our big next step in getting more of those veterinary management systems on board, which has been going very well so far.
And you said you're hoping to do a direct integration with the practice management systems. So have you established any of those yet? You can dig through our archives and find out how hard it is to do this, because both me and Ivan have a bit of experience.
Yeah, so that's actually part of the reason we created the myBalto Foundation in the first place, in all honesty, because a lot of the veterinary management systems actually want to work with us now because of that reason. Beforehand, before we had this, you're right, 100%, very difficult to integrate with anyone. They're all very busy, but this offers them an advantage to be able to offer to their current clinics, and when they're trying to acquire or adopt more clinics with their software. So that's kind of the advantage of having this as a tool, because we're offering it for free to them, and it really benefits the hospital community as a whole.
So your foundation and the Roundup, it works at the level of the PIMS, or does it work at the level of the merchant services? Because that's...
So we can do both, actually. So our current platform is, we can just do an individual basis. So we work with their point of sales, whatever service they use there, to create a Roundup charge checkout for them. But because of recent conversations we've had, a lot of the veterinary managed systems are open to actually doing a full embedding into their platform. And we're just finalizing a contract with a few of them now to wait until we actually finalize the contracts to make it official and then start just marketing that appropriately. But it's been a good way to get our information out there and then expose ourselves to a lot of hospitals very quickly.
Yeah, no, it sounds fascinating, and it really is innovative. It's really cool, and it's great that you found us here at the show, because this is exactly the kind of conversations that we want to have with people. I think you'll find a lot of traction hopefully with the roundups, because the hospitals don't want to turn away these pets, and we've had tons of episodes about economic euthanasia, and it's just one of the worst parts of the profession. So I think it's a really great problem to narrow in and solve. Where do you see this thing going? What do you want it to look like in 5 years?
Honestly, I'd love to be in 10,000 hospitals across the country for the myBalto Foundation, because even we can raise about $8,000 per veterinarian per year. So even with that, if you save one case a year, that's 10,000 pets then that you're not euthanizing for something that you can fix. And it doesn't have to be just that. It can be the cases that are just preventative care. You can do that massive surgery that patient needed. It just gives you a lot of flexibility as the veterinarian. And I think what makes us really unique is we're allowing the veterinarian to make the decision and choose the case that they want to help. There's a lot of angel funds that are fantastic, and I do not want to diminish any of the work that they're doing. But sometimes it's hard to get a hold of. Like it takes 24 to 48 hours to take turnarounds on funds. Sometimes there's restrictions. They need to do this, and then you need to do that as owners, and it takes time. Ours, you know how much is in your account right away. You can have a person at your clinic that's like, hey, go ahead and use it, and you can get answers in 5 minutes, and that way you can move forward with something. And I think the time saving part of it is also a big part of what we're doing.
That's awesome. And in your dream projection, you said that you want to be in 10,000 hospitals. That's a hell of a lot of work. Do you still see, this is a personal question, do you still see yourself being an emergency veterinarian at that point?
Yeah, I can't leave ER. I love it. I think it takes a weird person to do it long term.
Thank you. Yes.
That's the crowd here. It's fun. It's a nice way to it's, I think, a jack of all trades type thing. I think you need to know a little bit of everything. And I like the high energy environment. I like to maybe work a little less overnights, so I won't be opposed to turning that off in my life as much. But yeah, I think you have to be a little bit to stay connected to what you're doing.
No, that's cool. Yeah, I just, I was last weekend, my daughter split her chin,
Oh
and
no.
then ER is so difficult to get into in Canada. So I was like, screw this, I'm going to vet clinic, and I wanted just to pick up some tissue glue. So I walked into a vet clinic, into ER. There's a new ER in town, and I went in, and I'm like, I want to do some shifts again. So, but they didn't give me the tissue glue, unfortunately.
How about the shifts? Did they give you the shifts?
They weren't ready right away, but I'll see. I might pick up some shifts, so we'll see. I'm thinking about it. Well, Robert, this has been very interesting, really interesting project. I'm glad you are here during the launch. That's the best time to be, and then hopefully we'll get some interest. How do people find you? Before we ask you last couple of questions, but what's your website? How do they find you? How do they find the app and all of that?
Yeah, so the consumer app, so if you're a pet owner trying to save some money, you just go to www.mybalto.com. And if you are interested as a veterinarian and having the sense of the charity side at your hospital, again, it's free to use. It's www.mybaltofoundation.org.
All right. Well, there's two questions that we ask at the end of each show. Is there a podcast, TED Talk, YouTube video, book that you would recommend to listeners?
Well, I guess a book because it's like an innovative podcast, How Not to F Up Your Startup. If you have had a chance to read it, it's well written. First of all, it's funny to listen to. But if I had started in the beginning, I wish I read it as an intro, because I think it'd be a good way to start up a business, because again, veterinarians don't have a lot of background in that.
I might need that, so I'll read it again.
It's a great read and a great audio listen too if you're crunch for time. So yeah, highly recommend it.
And then the last question is another innovator that you think we should have on the show.
So one of my colleagues is doing some really impressive stuff with diagnosing cancer by your blood work, Dr. Andy Flory. She's an oncologist. She's absolutely wonderful. I highly encourage you guys to get a chance to talk to her, because she does some really cool stuff with Pet DX.
Thank you so much for listening to the Veterinary Innovation Podcast. If you want to hear about our new episodes, please follow us on any social media channel. Also, you can check out our website at veterinaryinnovationpodcast.com. See you next week.